Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Wideawakehorror today. Just want to say, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join the family. And as always, if you like these stories, you know what to do. Smash that like button and let us know in the comments what you think. And as always, enjoy the stories.
I never thought a breakup could lead to something this messed up. I mean, people always talk about heartbreak and all, but nobody mentions the kind of crazy that can come out when someone can't handle it. And that's exactly what happened with my ex Amanda. The girl couldn't take the breakup. I thought she was strong. She was a lot of things. Smart, funny, a little stubborn, but strong. But I guess I was wrong. I had no idea how far someone would go when they wanted to win someone back, especially when they've lost it completely. It all started slow. At first, it was just some weird things, stuff I brushed off, thinking maybe I was overthinking things. But then it got worse, much worse. I didn't see it coming. It wasn't like she came to me, begging, crying, or anything normal like that. No, Amanda's way was different. One day, I was scrolling through my phone at work, just checking messages from my friends when I saw one from my buddy Mike. He was texting a group message with me and a few other people, and there was something off about it. He was saying stuff like, "How's it feel to be me, man?" At first, I thought it was some inside joke I missed out on, but as I read more, I realized something strange was going on. It wasn't just Mike. It was everyone. My friends, my family, even my mom. Everyone seemed to be treating me like I was someone else. I asked Mike if something was going on. He responded, "Come on, you can't be serious. You're always joking like this, bro." That was the first time I started to get that feeling, that weird sense of things not being right. I didn't make sense of it all, though. I figured it was just one of those strange days. But when I came home that evening, I could feel the tension in the air, even before I'd opened the door. I unlocked the door, walked inside, and froze. The apartment, the one I'd been paying for, wasn't the same. It didn't feel the same. There she was, Amanda. But it wasn't like she was just standing there like some ex. No, she was sitting in the middle of the living room on my couch, wearing the exact same hoodie I used to wear, my shoes, and, what the hell, even my jeans. She was sitting there, scrolling through her phone like it was a normal day. I swear for a second I thought I was losing it. I thought maybe I didn't remember what was happening, maybe I was just too tired or confused. But when I stepped into the living room, she looked up at me with this blank stare. "You're home," she said, like nothing was wrong. I couldn't even speak. My head was spinning. "Amanda, what the hell are you doing here?" I asked. She just smiled. "Isn't this where I belong? I mean, you right? We belong together," she said, like it was the most casual thing in the world. I felt a pit in my stomach. I couldn't breathe. "Amanda, no. This is my place. Get out. This isn't funny." She stood up, took a step towards me, and that's when I saw it. The way she walked. It was the same. The same little thing she always did with her left foot. How she would kick her shoe off a little when she walked, like she didn't care. It was me. She was imitating me. She must have been doing it for weeks. I didn't realize it before, but all the little things were adding up. I saw her at work one day. She was wearing the same shirt I had worn the day before. She was eating at the same cafe I went to every day for lunch. I thought it was a coincidence at first. But now, standing in front of me, wearing my stuff in my apartment, it all clicked. She wasn't just heartbroken. She had become obsessed. "Amanda, this is insane," I said, taking a step back. She tilted her head, that same little confused look that I used to give when I was thinking hard about something. "Why? You don't like it?" she asked, her voice a bit higher, like she was pretending to sound like me. I was trembling. I knew I needed to get out of there. But what if she followed me? What if she was going to keep doing this to everyone I knew? To my family? My friends? I tried to leave the apartment, but as I turned to walk out, she grabbed my arm. "No, don't go. You're home, we're back together, right? This is where you belong. This is your life now," she said, her grip tightening. I pulled away, my heart racing. "No, you're not me, Amanda. You need help. I'm calling the cops." But she just laughed. It wasn't the laugh I remembered from when we were together. It wasn't funny. It was twisted. It made my skin crawl. "You can't do that. Who would believe you?" she said, eyes wide. A grin stretched across her face. I froze. "What?" "You've already tried to get rid of me, but look, I'm everywhere. I'm with your friends. I'm with your family. And now I'm here in your life and your home," she said. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. She was right. She had already taken over. I had no one to turn to. Don't you get it? She continued, her voice growing more frantic. I'm you now. I've won. I don't remember how I got out of there. But I did. I left, and I didn't look back. And that's the crazy part. The scariest part. I don't know where she is now, or if she's still out there pretending to be me. The police couldn't do anything. I couldn't prove it. They didn't believe me. They thought I was just some guy who couldn't get over a breakup. But I know what happened. I know what she did. I don't know how long it'll go on, but I know I'll never forget the feeling of walking into my own apartment and finding her there pretending to be me. I don't know where she is, but I have a feeling she's still out there. Somewhere. Watching. Waiting. I had always been the kind of guy who thought breakups were just a part of life. You meet someone, you fall in love, and sometimes it doesn't work out. You move on. Simple. At least, that's how it was supposed to be. That's what I told myself after everything ended with Claire. She wasn't the worst person in the world, but our relationship was always a roller coaster. One minute, everything was perfect, and the next, we were arguing about stupid stuff. When it ended, I figured we'd both move on and get back to our lives. I never expected the mess she'd leave me in. The day after we broke up, I got a package. It was a small box wrapped in brown paper, no return address, just my name scribbled on the front. I stared at it for a while, unsure if I should open it. But curiosity got the better of me, so I cut through the tape and peeled back the paper. Inside, there was a note. It was written in Claire's handwriting, the same messy, luby letters I'd seen on all the notes she'd written me in the past. I didn't recognize that handwriting at first because it was different, almost frantic. The note read, "You'll always belong to me." I just stared at it, feeling something tight in my chest. It didn't make any sense. The words felt like they were meant to be some twisted kind of closure, but it didn't work. It only left me feeling cold. I thought that was all. I mean, after everything, why would she send me a gift? Maybe she was just trying to get some closure or whatever. But when I reached down into the box, I felt something strange, something soft. My heart skipped a beat when I pulled out a lock of my own hair. My first thought was that it couldn't be mine. Maybe it was a mistake. I must have missed something. But when I looked closer, I saw it. Exactly like the hair I'd lost during the last few weeks of our relationship. The same length, the same color, and there was even a slight curl to it, just like mine. I sat there for a minute, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. I wasn't stupid. I knew it meant something, but I couldn't figure out what. Maybe it was her way of saying she'd been keeping something of mine and something personal, as if to keep me tied to her. But it didn't make any sense. Why would she send me something so creepy, so intimate? I shoved the box aside, unsure of what to do next. The whole thing left me with a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't want to deal with it, so I just let the box sit on my kitchen counter for the rest of the day. But that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I went to bed late, tossing and turning, unable to get any sleep. The next morning, I woke up and tried to shake it off. It had to be a one-time thing, right? Maybe she was just acting out because of the breakup, and this was her way of getting back at me. That's what I kept telling myself. But then I found something else. It was a picture. It was an old photo of us, one I hadn't seen in months. I kept it in a drawer in my bedroom, buried under a bunch of old stuff. It wasn't a particularly special picture, just a snapshot of us laughing in the park. Nothing that would be worth remembering. But there it was, lying on my couch like it had been placed there carefully. At first, I thought I was going crazy. Maybe I was misremembering where I'd left it, but no, I knew exactly where I'd put it, and I was sure it wasn't there yesterday. I turned the picture over. On the back, in Claire's handwriting, was another message: "You'll never be free from me." I felt my stomach drop. What was she doing? This was beyond normal. I had no idea how she was getting into my place. I'd changed the locks, and I didn't recognize the handwriting on the note. It was strange, almost frantic, like she was spiraling. But the worst part, I had no idea how she'd been able to get this picture or the lock of hair. I hadn't noticed anything missing from my place. The thought of her going through my stuff, picking through the most personal things I had, made my skin crawl. It was like she was collecting pieces of me, as if she was trying to keep me locked in some weird, twisted memory of us. Days went by, and the gifts kept coming. At first, It was little things. Old notes we'd exchanged, a ticket stub from a concert we'd gone to, a scarf I used to wear when we were together. All things I thought I'd lost. Every time I found one, it sent a wave of unease through me. It felt like she was invading my life, trying to hold on to a past that I wanted to move on from. I'd come home to find something new on my doorstep or in the mailbox, each time more personal than the last. A picture of me from a family event I hadn't even realized Claire had attended. A bottle of cologne I used to wear before I switched to something new. And once, there was even a shirt of mine, one that I thought was gone forever. I was terrified. I kept telling myself that it wasn't happening, that I was just imagining things. But I knew I wasn't. I knew I wasn't crazy. Someone was messing with my head, and it wasn't just Claire. It was the way she was leaving pieces of my life in my path, forcing me to remember everything about her, about us, when all I wanted to do was move on. I tried calling her, but she wouldn't pick up. I showed the police the notes, the gifts, but they didn't take me seriously. They told me it was just a nasty breakup, and that I should get some distance. They said it wasn't enough to file a report, but it felt like something worse than that. Then came the worst one. I'd been staying at my friend's place, hoping it would all blow over. I didn't want to go back to my apartment. I was scared to be there to find more of her stuff, more mementos, and feel her presence like a ghost hovering in the corner of my life. But when I got home, I found something I couldn't ignore. It was a piece of paper folded neatly on my kitchen counter. I opened it, my hands shaking, and read the words. Every memory of you is mine now. You can't escape me. And that's when I realized the truth. Claire wasn't just trying to mess with me. She wasn't just obsessed. She was trying to keep me trapped, tied to her in a way that would never let me go. The gifts kept coming after that, until one day they stopped, but I never felt safe again. I don't know where she is now, or if she's still keeping track of me. But I can't forget those little things she left behind, the pieces of me she collected and used to tie me to her. Every now and then I still find something I didn't even know was missing. I try to forget it, but it's always there reminding me that I'll never be truly free. Breaking up with her was supposed to be a fresh start. I thought I was doing the right thing. It wasn't even a messy breakup, just a mutual thing where we realized we weren't a good fit anymore. I figured it would be over, a little awkward at first, but eventually we'd both move on. Turns out I was wrong, way wrong. It started small at first. I'd come home late from work, grab some food, and relax. After a few days, though, I started noticing something strange. At night, when I look out my window, I'd see her, standing on the street, just staring at my apartment. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, or maybe I was paranoid. I mean, she was my ex. It made sense that she'd be upset or need closure, right? But as the nights went on, it didn't stop. She was always there. Sometimes she'd be standing still, and sometimes she'd be pacing. It was like she was waiting for me to notice. The first night I actually said something to her, she wasn't there. She must have been gone before I could even see her. But that's when I found something. I came home and noticed a strange mark on my door. It wasn't a scratch, more like a smudge or stain, but it wasn't like anything I'd ever seen. I didn't think much of it at the time, but the next night I noticed the same mark. It was then that I started realizing she was doing more than just standing outside. She was leaving something behind, and that made me feel uneasy. A few nights later, I found a note on my doorstep. It wasn't like anything I'd gotten from her before. It wasn't a love letter or anything like that. It was a jumbled mess of words, nonsensical, weird. It didn't even sound like her, like she was trying to be someone else or maybe something else. The note didn't make sense. It just had weird, random phrases that didn't connect. I couldn't figure it out. Maybe she was just losing it, I thought. She'd been upset about the breakup, and I told myself I was just overthinking things. But then it happened again, and again. The symbols started showing up on my door too. Strange, cryptic shapes. They weren't any symbols I recognized. They looked like something out of a bad horror movie or a cult ritual. At first, I thought it was some kind of sick joke, but they kept appearing. Every night, more and more. The worst part, it wasn't just her showing up. It was the way she started leaving things. One day, I came home from work, and the first thing I noticed was the smell. It was a heavy, stale kind of scent, almost like mildew. At first, I couldn't place it, but when I stepped inside, it hit me. There were things in my apartment, things that weren't mine, things I didn't recognize. A few of my old clothes were hanging on the chair in the living room. Some of my personal items were scattered across the counter. It was like she'd been inside, rummaging through my stuff. I tried to change the locks, I really did. But somehow the weird stuff kept happening. The marks on the door, the random notes. Every night, I'd look out the window and sure enough, she'd be there. It didn't matter what time it was. Midnight, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., it didn't stop. She was always there, standing in the street, staring up at me. But then one night, it got worse. I'd been staying up late, trying to work, but my mind kept wandering back to the idea of her watching me. I kept checking the window, the door, everything, convinced she'd be there. But that night, I didn't see her. Not at first. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep. But every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was her standing outside, just staring. It was like a nightmare that wouldn't end. I told myself to stop thinking about it, that I was just being paranoid. But then I heard something. It was a soft sound, like a whisper, faint at first. It was like someone was calling my name, but it wasn't her voice. It wasn't even a voice I recognized. It was cold, almost hollow. I tried to ignore it, but the sound got louder, closer. My heart was pounding now. It sounded like it was coming from the foot of my bed. I held my breath, listening. It was her. It had to be. But when I opened my eyes, she wasn't there. I sat up, a whole body tense, ready to bolt out of the room if I needed to. I looked around, checking every corner of the room, but there was nothing. Nothing except the eerie silence. And then I saw it. At the foot of my bed, sitting there in the shadows, was her. But she wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the floor. Her back was turned to me, and her head was tilted down. Her hair covered her face, and it looked like she was mumbling something to herself. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even breathe. It wasn't until she looked up that I realized something was horribly wrong. Her eyes were black. Not the deep brown I remembered, but black. And they were empty, hollow, like she wasn't even human. She didn't speak again. She just stared at me, and it felt like the room was closing in on me. I could hear my heart beating in my chest, thumping so loudly that it drowned out everything else. I don't remember exactly what happened next, but I must have jumped out of bed. I must have run out of my apartment. I don't even remember if I locked the door or not. But when I came back the next morning, everything seemed normal. Almost too normal. The strange symbols on the door were gone. The notes were gone. It was like it had never happened. I didn't go back to the apartment after that. I stayed with friends, stayed anywhere that wasn't that place. It wasn't just her watching me anymore. It was like something else was there, something worse, something that wasn't her. I never know if it's over, though. I keep hearing strange noises outside my new place. Sometimes I think I see her, just standing across the street watching me. But I try not to think about it. I can't. I don't know if she's gone for good, but I'll never forget the feeling of her sitting at the foot of my bed. I thought I was free. I really did. After everything with Daniel, I was sure that when we broke up, it was done. He'd seemed okay at first. He wasn't angry or hurt in a dramatic way like some of the other exes I'd heard about. No, he was calm. Too calm. I thought that meant he was over it, and so was I. But boy, was I wrong. It all started a couple of weeks after the breakup. I was at a cafe, grabbing some coffee and working on a project for school. Nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't tell anyone my plans. I was just out, trying to get through my day. But then, as I was walking out, I ran into him. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. But then I noticed something odd. He didn't seem surprised to see me. He looked pleased, like he'd been expecting me. I didn't think much of it then. Maybe he had a class nearby, or maybe it was just fate. But it wasn't long before I started to see him everywhere. It started with random places, nothing too suspicious. I saw him at the grocery store one day, then at the park, and then again at a friend's birthday party. The weird thing was, I never told him where I was going. We hadn't even spoken since the breakup. I didn't know how he was finding me. The more I thought about it, the weirder it became. It wasn't just that he was showing up in these places. It was that he seemed to always know where I was, even before I went there. I'd be getting ready to leave my apartment, and I'd glance out the window and see him walking by, like he'd been waiting for me to leave. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe it was just bad luck, a coincidence. But then I started noticing the small things. He would wave or say hi like we were still friends. But something in the way he did it made me uncomfortable. It wasn't like the casual friendliness you expect from an ex. It was more like he was watching me, studying me, waiting for me to react. I tried to ignore it. I kept telling myself it was all in my head. But one night, when I was home alone, I got a text from an unknown number. It was just a photo. A picture of me walking down the street earlier that day. I froze. How could someone have gotten that? The photo was taken from a distance, and I couldn't remember seeing anyone following me. I didn't even know where the picture had been taken from. I thought about it for hours. My mind was racing. I tried to come up with a logical explanation, but nothing made sense. Why would anyone take my picture like that? It felt wrong. The next day, I woke up to another text. This one was worse. It was a screenshot of my social media account. A recent post I'd made, the one where I'd mentioned grabbing drinks with a friend later that evening. It wasn't just the post, it was the comments. The weird part, I hadn't seen him online that day. There was no way he'd known about my plans unless he was watching me. I tried to brush it off. I figured he was just stalking my social media and didn't know where I was going. But then it got more personal. One night, I went to bed late after a long day. I was exhausted, but something kept me up. A strange feeling, like someone was in the room with me. I told myself it was just paranoia. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't shake the feeling. When I woke up in the morning, I checked my phone like usual. But this time, I had a few new notifications. One was a message from that unknown number again. The message was simple. Nice pajamas, but I think you forgot to close your window. My blood ran cold. My window had been open. I hadn't thought about it, but it was open, and now I was terrified. How did he know about my window? He couldn't have been inside, right? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the next few days only made it worse. I kept seeing him. He was always there, just showing up wherever I was. Every time I left my apartment, he was there. At the mall, at the gym, outside the cafe. No matter where I went, he was there. That's when I started to realize the truth. It wasn't a coincidence anymore. Daniel wasn't just showing up by chance. He was tracking me. I began to feel like I was living in some sort of nightmare. The walls were closing in, and I couldn't escape. It wasn't just his presence. It was the constant feeling of being watched. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And then one day I decided to check my phone settings. I'd been using my phone like normal, but there was one thing I hadn't considered. Maybe he had hacked into it. It was a long shot, but I figured it couldn't hurt to check. When I went into my phone's settings, my worst fear was confirmed. I found a strange app that I didn't remember installing. It was hidden in a folder, disguised under a name that seemed harmless. I clicked on it, and that's when I realized what it was. It was a tracker. I felt sick to my stomach as I looked through the app. It showed my location, right down to the exact street I was on. It showed a history of where I had been, where I was going, and when. It even had access to my messages, my photos, everything. I was being tracked, and I had no idea how long it had been going on. I had to act fast. I immediately deleted the app and changed all my passwords, but I knew it wasn't enough. He had already seen everything, and now he knew I knew. The next day, I went to the police. I showed them the app, the texts, and everything else. But they didn't seem to take me seriously at first. They told me it could be a mistake, that it could have been a glitch or a faulty app. But I knew better. I went back home that night, still shaken, but determined to be done with it. I thought maybe if I just lay low, things would calm down. But as I was about to lock my door, I saw something on the floor. It was a small device, a tiny black box with a blinking red light. I bent down to pick it up, my heart racing. It was a tracker. Another one. I didn't even know how many he planted. I knew right then that Daniel wasn't letting me go. He was never going to stop. I thought I was done. After everything with Jenna, I figured it was over. I was ready to move on, find someone else, and just live my life. She was a great person, but the relationship just didn't work out, and we both knew it. We agreed to break up and go our separate ways. But somehow it didn't stay that simple. It started off as an innocent text here and there, just checking in, making sure I was okay, asking if I was dating anyone yet. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, she was my ex. She cared, right? But as the weeks went by, things started to feel off. At first, it was just constant messages. I would get one in the morning, one around lunch, and then another at night. I didn't answer most of them, but I didn't think it was anything too weird until I started seeing her at my work. I'll never forget the first time it happened. I was walking into the office, trying to get through a long week, when I saw her standing by the entrance. She didn't even look surprised to see me. She just smiled and waved, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I told myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe she was in the area, or maybe she was visiting a friend at the building. But the next day, she was there again. And the day after that. It wasn't long before I started seeing her everywhere. At the coffee shop down the street, at the gym I went to, even at the grocery store. I tried to confront her a couple of times, asking if she was following me. But each time, she would act like it was nothing. She'd laugh it off, tell me she was just passing by or picking something up. But it didn't make sense. She knew where I was going. She knew where I lived. I thought maybe it was all in my head. I mean, she was my ex, and maybe I was just being paranoid. But the more it happened, the more uncomfortable I felt. And then things got even worse. I came home one night after a long day of work, hoping for some peace and quiet. But when I walked into my apartment building, I froze. There she was, standing in the hallway, looking around like she was just waiting for me to come home. I didn't know what to do. I was already starting to feel trapped, like there was no escape from her. I tried to ignore her, hoping that she'd just leave. But she didn't. She just smiled and waved again, like everything was fine. I thought I'd move in here, she said casually, like it was no big deal. I stood there in shock. What you mean move in here? I found a place on the same floor. Just a couple of doors down from you, she explained, her voice so calm, like she was talking about a normal, everyday decision. I didn't know what to say. I was furious, but I was also confused. How did she manage to get an apartment on the same floor as me? Was she planning this the entire time? It wasn't just about her moving in. It was everything. It was the way she kept showing up at the places I went, making herself a part of my life again, even though I had asked for space. She was everywhere, and it didn't stop there. One evening, I went out on a date with someone new. Her name was Kate, and I had just started getting to know her. We went to a nice little restaurant, and I was hoping for a fresh start. But as we sat down, I saw Jenna. She was sitting at a table across the room staring at me. At first, I thought I was just imagining things. But then she got up and walked over, smiling like she was just a friendly acquaintance. "Oh my God, hi," she said, acting like we were still best friends. Kate looked confused, but Jenna didn't miss a beat. She introduced herself like she was just a friend of mine, nothing more. She didn't even acknowledge that we'd once been in a relationship. It was like she was trying to pretend she wasn't the person I used to know. I was speechless. Kate was looking at me, but I couldn't explain what was happening. Jenna didn't give me a chance. She stayed for a few minutes, chatting with us like everything was normal, before walking off like nothing had happened. I didn't know how to explain it. I couldn't tell Kate that my ex was stalking me, showing up at random places and pretending to be someone else. But I could tell that Kate was starting to get suspicious. She didn't say anything, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. The next few weeks were a blur. Jenna kept showing up at my dates, pretending to be someone else. She would sit next to us at the bar, introduce herself as a friend of mine, and make sure everyone around me thought she was just a harmless acquaintance. It wasn't long before my friends started asking me questions. They'd ask why Jenna was always around, why I hadn't told them she'd moved into the building, and why she kept popping up at every place I went. I was stuck in the middle of it all. Every time I went out with someone new, Jenna would show up, and it was like I couldn't escape her. She was making my new relationships harder and harder to maintain. I felt like I was losing control, like she was slowly taking over my life again. Then came the worst night. I was out at a bar with some friends, just trying to have a good time, when Jenna walked in. She wasn't alone this time. She had a couple of friends with her, and she made a point of sitting at the table next to mine. I could feel the tension rising. Everyone was starting to notice, starting to whisper. I could see the way my friends were looking at me, the way Kate had stopped texting me after that last incident. It was all falling apart. I realized then that Jenna had made everyone suspicious of me. She had done it in such a subtle way, so carefully that no one even realized she was the problem. She was playing the victim, making me look like the crazy one. I tried to get her to leave, to confront her and tell her to stop. But it was like talking to a brick wall. She didn't care. She wasn't listening to me. I didn't know how to get her out of my life. I didn't know how to make her stop. She wasn't letting go. It's been months since all of this started, and it hasn't gotten any better. I still see her around sometimes, lurking in the background of my life, always there, always watching. I don't know how to escape her, or if I ever will. Breaking up with David was supposed to be the end of it. At least, that's what I thought. We had been dating for almost 2 years, and while it wasn't the worst relationship, it wasn't exactly great either. We were young, and sometimes people just outgrow each other, right? That's what I told myself when we called it quits. I figured we'd move on, no hard feelings. But boy, was I wrong. A few days after we broke up, things started to get strange. I started getting texts from an unknown number. At first, they were vague, like the kind of messages you get from someone trying to keep things light. But they weren't. Not really. The messages would start innocently enough, just a "Hey, how are you?" or "Hope you're doing well," but then they quickly turned unsettling. It wasn't just the texts, though. There were calls, too. Calls that came at all hours of the day and night. When I answered, there was no one there. It was just heavy breathing on the other end, followed by a voice that sounded like it was trying to hide its true nature. One evening, after a particularly weird call, I sent a message back. I asked who it was, and the reply came in almost instantly. "Someone who wants to make sure you never forget me." I froze. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know if I was being paranoid, but something about those words hit me in a way I couldn't shake. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Was this David? Was he trying to mess with me? Maybe he was angry, but why was he doing this? We'd broken up, and it made it clear that I wanted to move on. But the calls and texts didn't stop. In fact, they started getting worse. They were more frequent now, and the messages became more cryptic. I started getting pictures, random photos of places I had been, things I'd done. A photo of my apartment building taken from across the street, a picture of me walking home from work, a snapshot of my favorite cafe. Each time I received one, I felt a little more on edge. The worst part, I couldn't figure out how they were getting these pictures. I never saw anyone following me. No one was ever in sight when I walked down the street, but the pictures kept coming, always a step behind me, like they knew my every move. Then one day I received a package. It was small, wrapped in plain brown paper, and didn't have any return address. My first thought was maybe it was a mix-up, or maybe something from a family member or friend. But when I opened it, the contents made my heart stop. Inside there was a small box with a note. The note was short but chilling. "You'll always remember this." I opened the box, half expecting something trivial, maybe an old memory from when David and I were together. But what I got wasn't anything I could have prepared for. It was a collection of photos from our relationship, some of them I didn't even know existed. There were pictures of us at our favorite spots, our first day at the beach, a photo of us laughing at some random party, and one from a hike we took months ago. But what made my blood run cold wasn't just the photos themselves. It was that some of these moments were things I had forgotten about, things I hadn't even remembered until I saw them again. But the worst part was what was at the bottom of the box. I almost didn't want to look, but when I did, my stomach churned. There, at the bottom of the box, was my ring. The ring I had lost. It wasn't just any ring. It was a gift from my grandmother, one of the few things I truly valued. I'd lost it months ago, the night of our breakup. I remember feeling like something was off that night, like I had left a part of myself behind. I had searched everywhere for it, but I never found it. And now here it was, in the bottom of this damn box. But it wasn't just the ring that terrified me. It was the way it looked. It was covered in something dark. At first, I thought it was dirt, but when I touched it, I realized what it was. It was blood. I dropped the ring instantly, my hands shaking. How the hell did it get here? How had it come to be covered in blood? And why was it being sent to me now? I felt nauseous. My heart was pounding in my chest as I stared at the box, the ring now laying on the floor beside it. The blood was still fresh. The whole situation was completely messed up. I couldn't breathe. The only thing I could think was, this is it. This is David. He was behind all of this. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go to the police. I didn't have any proof that he was involved, and I couldn't explain how he got my ring. All I had were these strange texts, the photos, and the box. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming, but they were getting worse. There was no escaping it anymore. The phone calls, the text messages, they were nonstop, each one more sinister than the last. The worst message came one night, just after I'd gotten into bed. I hadn't heard from him in a few hours, so I thought maybe it was over. Maybe he'd gotten the hint, but then my phone buzzed, and when I looked at the screen, I nearly dropped it. Did you miss me? You'll never forget me. I'll always be with you. That's when I knew. It wasn't just about the breakup. It was about control. He was trying to make sure I could never truly get away from him. I started looking over my shoulder all the time. I started feeling like I was being watched everywhere I went. The anxiety started eating away at me. I couldn't focus at work. I couldn't go out without feeling like someone was following me. And every time I checked my phone, I saw another message, another haunting reminder of what he was doing. I tried changing my number, moving to a different place, blocking every number I could think of, but it didn't matter. The calls kept coming. The texts kept coming. It was like he had some way of finding me, some way to always be just one step behind me. I don't know how to make it stop. I don't know if it ever will. Every time I think I've gotten a break, something new shows up. I can't escape it. I don't know how much longer I can live like this. I thought I had done everything right. I really did. After the breakup, I knew it was time to cut ties with Sarah for good. The relationship had been toxic for a while, but I couldn't see it at the time. It was always something. She'd get jealous, clingy, possessive. It felt like I could never breathe. When I finally broke up with her, I knew it was for the best for both of us. I thought the hard part was over, but I couldn't have been more wrong. I blocked her on everything: social media, text, even email. I changed my phone number, and when that didn't seem enough, I moved to a new city. I figured that if I started fresh, I could leave all the baggage behind. No more late night calls, no more texts filled with threats or pleas for me to come back. I was done. I thought I was free. But Sarah wasn't the type to let go that easily. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. I started seeing someone new, and at first, everything felt right. I found a new job. I found a place to live in a quiet neighborhood, and for a while, I thought I could actually have a normal life again. But then little things started happening. I'd be sitting at the coffee shop near my apartment, trying to get some work done, when I'd see a familiar face from the corner of my eye. I'd turn, but the person would be gone. I shrugged it off, telling myself it was just someone who looked like Sarah, or maybe just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then it happened again. I'd go to the grocery store and I'd feel like I was being watched. The same chill would run up my spine every time I turned a corner or grabbed a can off the shelf. I'd see a glimpse of someone with familiar hair or a figure that felt too familiar. Every time I'd turn around, and no one would be there. But then the messages started. I hadn't given anyone my new number. I'd been careful, but somehow she found it. The first text was simple enough: "I miss you." And then another one the next day: "We belong together, you know that, right?" They were soft at first, almost like a plea. But that didn't make it less terrifying. How the hell did she get my number? I ignored them, deleted them, and blocked the number, but it didn't stop. I kept getting more calls, more anonymous texts, each one more desperate than the last. "You'll never be happy without me," one of them read. "You'll never forget me." It felt like she was slowly chipping away at me, trying to make me think that maybe I was wrong for leaving her. But no matter how many times I told myself to stay strong, the fear started creeping in. I had moved, I had blocked her, and still she found a way into my life. Then one night, it all came to a head. I had just gotten home from work, and it was a quiet evening. I was looking forward to a night with my new girlfriend, just hanging out, watching movies, and relaxing. But when I opened the door, something didn't feel right. The lights were off in my living room, but the door was ajar. I never left my door unlocked, not even a crack. I told my girlfriend to wait outside while I checked it out. My heart was pounding in my chest as I walked slowly to the door, feeling a rush of panic wash over me. I pushed the door open, and there she was, Sarah, standing in my living room, her back to me. She didn't even turn around when I entered. She was just standing there, staring at the wall. The air felt thick, like time had stopped for a moment. The first thing that hit me was the smell, something metallic, something I couldn't place. My mind raced, trying to process what I was seeing. Then she turned around. Her eyes were wide, almost glassy, like she wasn't all there. She held something in her hand, something small and shiny. At first, I didn't recognize what it was, but then it clicked. It was a gun. My heart stopped. She smiled, but it wasn't a normal smile. It was twisted, like something out of a nightmare. She slowly pointed the gun toward me, still smiling like nothing was wrong. I froze, my hands shaking. I didn't know what to do, didn't know how to make her see sense. "I won't leave until you give me one more chance," she said, her voice sounding almost too calm, too controlled. "We belong together, you know that." I was terrified. I couldn't breathe. My mind was running in circles, trying to figure out how to get out of this situation. She had a gun. She could do anything. And yet she was still talking about getting back together, still acting like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Then she dropped the bombshell. "I've been planning this for months," she said, almost casually, like we were discussing the weather. "I knew you wouldn't just come back to me. I knew you'd try to run away, but I knew how to find you, to track you down. I made sure of it, and now here we are." She paused for a moment, watching me closely. Her grip on the gun tightened just slightly, like she was savoring the moment. "I wasn't going to let you go that easy." I wanted to scream to run to get away from her, but my feet felt glued to the floor. My mind couldn't process what she was saying. She had been planning this, tracking me. How had she done it? How had she gotten so far into my life again? But then she did something that made my stomach drop even further. She set the gun down on the coffee table and pulled out a thick stack of papers. I could barely believe what I was seeing. The papers were full of photos, photos of me, of my girlfriend, of the places I'd been, the things I'd done. She had been watching me, collecting these moments like they were trophies. It hit me all at once. This wasn't about being back together. It was about control. She had been plotting this for months, planning everything down to the smallest detail, just to make sure I could never really leave her. I don't know how I got out of it that night. I don't remember much after that moment, just a blur of panic and adrenaline. But the next morning, when I called the police, they couldn't find her. She was gone. The gun was gone. The papers were gone. But I know what happened. I know she was here. I know she had been planning it all. And I know she won't stop until I'm hers again. At first, I thought it was just the bitterness of a breakup, the kind of thing that gets under your skin when someone can't accept things are over. I had broken up with Emily, and I thought it was the right decision. We had been together for a while, and while we were great at first, something shifted, and it felt like I couldn't breathe anymore. It wasn't healthy for either of us, and in the end, we parted ways. I was ready to move on. What I didn't expect was how far she would go to make sure I never truly moved on. It started simple enough. I noticed a few cryptic comments on my social media posts. Things like, "You'll regret leaving me, and you don't even know what you're missing." At first, I thought it was just her trying to get attention, or maybe get under my skin. You know, the usual breakup drama. But then it didn't stop. Every time I posted something, every time I updated a status or uploaded a photo, there she was. Her comments were always strange and unsettling. It wasn't just jealousy anymore. Her words started to take on a darker tone, almost like she was watching me, studying my every move. "I know where you are," she'd write. "You're not as safe as you think." The more I tried to ignore her, the worse it got. It wasn't just comments now. She started private messaging me, sending long, rambling texts that made no sense, talking about how she had dreams where she saw my loved ones in danger. At first, I thought she was just playing mind games with me, trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty. But then, something in the messages clicked. These weren't just random threats or jealous outbursts. She was talking about my friends, my family, things she couldn't possibly know unless she had been watching me. Things she had no way of knowing unless she was closer to me than I realized. I started to feel paranoid. I blocked her on all my accounts, changed my privacy settings, and even adjusted my phone to make sure she couldn't reach me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there, lurking in the background of my life. It didn't help that I kept seeing her name pop up in the strangest places. On my Instagram, Twitter, even in the comments of people I barely knew. Emily was everywhere, and it felt like I couldn't escape her. Then came the warning. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to an empty house. I had recently adopted a dog, a cute little terrier named Max, and he was the one thing that always made me feel like things were normal. He'd be waiting by the door, wagging his tail, excited to see me after a long day. But when I walked in, Max wasn't there. I thought maybe he was just out back or had wandered into the other room, but when I looked around, I couldn't find him. Panic started to set in. I called his name, checked his favorite spots around the house, but he was nowhere to be found. It wasn't like him to run off, and I couldn't understand why he wasn't responding. That's when I saw it. On the kitchen table, there was a note. It was simple, but it froze me in place when I read it. Stay with me forever, or you'll never see him again. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. It was Emily. There was no doubt in my mind now. She had taken Max. She had taken my dog as some kind of twisted warning to get me back. The note wasn't just a threat. It was her way of saying that if I didn't come back to her, there would be consequences. I felt sick, my mind racing. I immediately checked my phone, but no new messages from her. No calls. It was like she was playing with me, toying with me, making sure I was scared before she made her move. I went to the police, of course, but they didn't seem to take me seriously. They gave me a report number, told me they'd look into it, but I could tell they didn't think much of it. After all, it was just a missing dog, right? They didn't know the full story. They didn't know what she was capable of. I spent the next few hours frantically searching for Max, asking neighbors, checking the streets. But he was gone. It felt like I was losing my mind. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, just obsessively checking every corner of the neighborhood in case she had dropped him off somewhere. It was almost midnight when I finally got the text. I told you I wouldn't leave you alone. You'll never escape me, not without a price. Come to the old park by the river. You'll find what you're looking for. I didn't even think. I just grabbed my keys and headed out the door, hoping to find Max before anything worse happened. My hands were shaking as I drove through the empty streets, the dark corners of the city looming around me. The old park by the river was quiet when I arrived, the trees casting long shadows in the moonlight. I parked my car and got out, my heart hammering in my chest. I was terrified, but I had no choice. I had to find Max. I called out for him, walking through the park slowly, my eyes scanning the dark path ahead. And then I heard it, the faint sound of a whimpering, the sound of Max. I rushed toward the sound, my pulse racing, but when I rounded the corner, I froze. Max was there, tied to a tree, but that wasn't the worst part. There, standing beside him, was Emily. She was holding the leash, but she wasn't looking at me. Her eyes were blank, distant, like she wasn't even aware of where she was. She was speaking softly, almost like she was in a trance, repeating the same words over and over again. You'll come back. You'll stay with me forever. You belong to me. It was like she was in some kind of dream. She didn't seem like the person I knew anymore. She had changed, and whatever was left of her was obsessed with making me stay, no matter what it took. I rushed forward, trying to grab Max, but as soon as I did, she snapped out of it, her eyes locking onto mine. You don't get it, do you? She said, her voice cold and empty. You can't leave me. Not now. Not ever. The moment felt like an eternity. I grabbed Max and ran. I didn't look back. I didn't care what she did, what she said. I just had to get out of there. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know how far she's willing to go to get me back, but I know one thing for sure. She won't stop until I'm hers again. I never thought a breakup could go this far. I mean, yeah, we fought a lot toward the end of our relationship, and I knew it was coming. But when it finally happened, I figured we'd both go our separate ways, lick our wounds, and eventually move on. That's what normal people do, right? Not my ex, though. Her name was Jessica, and she wasn't the kind of person to just let go of something. She was one of those people who would hold on to a grudge forever, who couldn't accept that things were over. I tried to stay civil, to not give her any reason to get upset. But after everything, it became clear. She wasn't going to let it end like that. At first, things seemed normal. I didn't hear from her for a few weeks after the breakup. I thought she was finally starting to move on. But then, out of nowhere, I got a notification. It was on a dating app. At first, I thought maybe I had just set my profile to public or something by accident. I didn't use it much, but when I checked, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There on the app was a profile with pictures of me, my face, my clothes, my life. Only it wasn't my account. It was hers. She had created a fake profile using my photos, pretending to be me. At first, I thought it was some kind of weird mistake or a sick joke. But it wasn't. She had matched with people I knew. She had matched with my friends. My first instinct was to text a few of them and let them know it was a fake account. I didn't want them to think I was out there doing something I wasn't. But when I checked my messages, I saw something that made my stomach turn. She wasn't just pretending to be me, she was talking to my friends. The messages she was sending weren't just harmless small talk. No, they were intimate, personal, the kind of messages I would send to someone I was really into. She was pretending to be me in every way, down to the tone of my voice. I couldn't understand it. Why would she do this? What'd she want from me? I blocked the account, but it didn't stop. I started getting messages from other people who had matched with me on the app. People I had never spoken to. They were confused, asking why I had said such weird, inappropriate things to them. Some were angry. Some were hurt. One of my close friends texted me, telling me that she was disappointed in me after reading the messages I'd sent to her. I felt like I was losing control of everything. It didn't stop with the app. The next week I started getting more texts, this time from numbers I didn't recognize. At first I thought they were just spam messages, but then I saw a name pop up that made my blood run cold. Jessica. She was using other numbers now. She was texting me from different accounts, pretending to be random people. The messages got darker, more threatening. One night, I received a message from her saying, "I'm going to make sure everyone knows who you really are. No one's going to trust you again." I didn't know what to do. I blocked the numbers. I changed my settings on everything. But she had already done too much damage. The rumors started to spread. People who had been my friends for years started to distance themselves. I could feel the weight of the lies pressing down on me, crushing everything I had worked for. The worst part, I couldn't prove any of it. There was no way to show people that this wasn't me, that it was all her. She had been so careful, so methodical about everything. She knew exactly what to say, exactly how to manipulate the situation. And then one night, it got even worse. I was home alone, finally trying to relax after days of stress, when I heard a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I didn't even know who it could be, but when I opened it, I froze. It was Jessica. She was standing there smiling like she had won something. She wasn't crying, she wasn't angry. She was calm, almost too calm. And in her hands, she was holding something. It was my phone. She had somehow gotten her hands on it. She had my number, my contacts, everything. It was like she had invaded my entire life. She smiled at me, like she was savoring every moment of this, every second of my discomfort. "I'm not done yet," she said, her voice like ice. "This is just the beginning. I'm going to make sure you never have peace again." I felt like my world was shattering. I tried to step back, tried to close the door, but she was faster. She pushed her way in, forcing her way into my apartment. I couldn't even process what was happening. "Do you really think you can get rid of me? You'll never be free from me," she said. "I'll make sure you regret it." She kept talking, but I wasn't listening anymore. I didn't care about the words. I cared about getting out. I couldn't let her take everything I had worked for. I had to stop this. I pushed past her and ran out of my apartment, straight to the police. I showed them everything, the fake profiles, the messages, the pictures. But it wasn't enough. They told me they couldn't do anything until she actually caused harm. I couldn't believe it. I was stuck in a nightmare, and no one was going to help me. I don't know what happened to Jessica after that. I kept changing my numbers, my accounts, trying to keep her out of my life. But every time I thought it was over, she'd find a way back in. Now I keep my guard up all the time. I don't trust anyone. I don't put myself out there anymore. I can't afford to. I can't afford to let anyone else fall victim to the lies she spread about me. And I can't forget the fact that no matter how hard I try, she'll always find a way back into my life. She hasn't stopped yet. I thought the breakup with Ryan would be the hard part, but little did I know it was only the beginning. It wasn't a messy breakup, at least not at first. We had just grown apart, and I figured it would be a clean break. But that wasn't what Ryan had in mind. He wasn't ready to let go. It started slow. At first, I noticed him hanging around our neighborhood. I'd be leaving for work or running errands, and I'd spot him in the distance, walking down the street or standing by his car, looking like he was waiting for me. I told myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe he was just struggling with the breakup, and I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But the signs kept coming. One day, I came home to find a small package sitting on my doorstep. It was wrapped in brown paper, tied with string. My heart sank when I saw it. I didn't even have to open it to know who it was from. I unwrapped it carefully, half expecting something simple, like a note or a gift I didn't ask for. But when I opened it, I found a doll. The doll looked like me. It wasn't an exact replica, but it was close enough to give me the creeps. It had my hair, my eyes, and even my smile painted on its face. The kind of smile you'd wear in a photo or a moment where you were trying to look happy. I felt a cold sweat break out on my neck. Who would do this? Why would he do this? I threw the doll away, hoping it would be the end of it. But the next day, another one appeared, and then another. Each time, the dolls seemed to get more detailed, more disturbing. The last one even had a tiny replica of my old necklace, the one I used to wear every day. I couldn't ignore it any longer. This wasn't just a guy who couldn't let go. This was something else entirely. I knew I had to do something. I called the police, but they didn't take it seriously. They told me to block him, change my number, and keep my doors locked. I did all of that, but nothing stopped. It got worse. A week later, I came home from work to find my front door slightly ajar. My stomach dropped as I stepped inside. I'd been sure I had locked it before I left. Something wasn't right. I checked the house room by room, heart pounding in my chest. But it wasn't until I went upstairs that I noticed something off. The attic door was slightly open. I didn't even know why I had an attic. I never used it, and I didn't keep anything up there. But the door had always been locked, and I was sure it had been sealed shut when I left. I walked cautiously toward it, my feet feeling like they were dragging through thick air. When I opened the door, I froze. There, in the corner of the attic, was a small pile of my belongings. My old books, clothes, photos, things I thought I had gotten rid of. And right at the top of the pile was a notebook. It was a black, leather-bound journal, something I recognized immediately. It was Ryan's. My mind started racing, my heart hammering in my chest. How did he get in here? Why was he keeping my things? What else had he been doing in my house while I was gone? I opened the journal, my hands shaking. The pages were filled with strange drawings. Some of them looked like me, others like things that didn't make sense. There were sketches of my house, my neighborhood, and even me sleeping in my bed. I couldn't breathe. I felt the walls closing in around me. It wasn't just that he had been inside my house. It was that he had been watching me. And now he had everything, my belongings, my memories, my life. He was following me, tracking my every move, and I had no idea how long it had been going on. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every shift in the shadows made me jump. I felt like I was being watched constantly. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there, still lurking in the corners of my life, waiting for the right moment. And then it happened. One night, as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard something. It was soft at first, just a whisper. But as the minutes passed, it grew louder. It was my name. I felt a chill run through me as I lay in the darkness, the voice growing clearer, coming from somewhere close. It wasn't just any whisper. It was his voice. "Your name," he said, his voice low and soft. "I'm right here. Don't you remember me?" I sat up in bed, my heart pounding in my chest. I turned on the light, half expecting to see him standing at the foot of my bed. But there was nothing. The room was empty, still. But I knew it wasn't over. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't pretend like it was just a bad dream. I had to get out. I had to leave before he decided to come back. I packed a bag and left that night, heading to a friend's house and telling them everything that had happened. But no matter how far I ran, I couldn't escape the feeling that Ryan was still out there, still watching me. I couldn't shake the thought that one day he'd come back, and this time he wouldn't leave until he had me for good. I don't know where he is now. I don't know what he's planning. But I know one thing for sure. I'll never feel safe in my own home again. Breaking up with her wasn't easy. It never is, right? You spend so much time with someone, thinking it's all good, but eventually, things change. With Sarah, I could feel it coming for months. We drifted apart, and we both knew it. The relationship had become routine, lifeless. I wanted out, but I also didn't want to hurt her. So we did what seemed like the right thing at the time, parted ways. For a while, everything seemed fine. I moved into a new place, started focusing on my work, and went out with friends. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I just wanted to be free. But even after the breakup, Sarah still lingered in my thoughts. It wasn't like I missed her. I just couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't completely gone from my life. Then one evening, about 3 weeks after the breakup, I heard a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I hesitated before opening it. When I did, there she was, Sarah, standing on my doorstep with that smile of hers, calm, almost too calm. "I thought I'd come by to make things right," she said. At first, I didn't know what to say. I was shocked. I hadn't heard from her since we broke up, and here she was, standing in front of me like nothing had changed. My first instinct was to tell her to leave, but I didn't. Something in the way she looked at me made me hesitate. She said she'd made dinner. Something simple, she assured me. And after a moment of awkward silence, I agreed to sit down with her. I don't know why I said yes, but I did. Maybe I thought this could be some sort of closure, or maybe I was just curious. I followed her into the kitchen. It looked the same as when we used to live together. She had everything set up like it was just another normal evening. The smell of the food hit me right away, something familiar, something we used to cook together all the time. It was comforting in a way. But the longer I stood there, the more uneasy I felt. Something about the situation felt wrong. Sarah started cooking the same meal we used to make on quiet nights in. A simple pasta dish, garlic bread on the side, and a salad. I didn't think much of it at first, but as I watched her move around the kitchen, I realized she was taking her time. There was something almost methodical about the way she stirred the sauce, as if every movement was deliberate, calculated. "Remember this?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder at me with that same strange smile. I nodded, trying to force a smile back. I didn't know what to say. The whole situation felt off, but I didn't want to make things awkward, so I sat down at the table, watching as she set everything out in front of us. The meal looked just like the ones we used to share, familiar and comforting. But that's when things started to take a darker turn. We sat down to eat, and at first, everything seemed normal. We talked about work, about the weather, about what we'd been doing since the breakup. Nothing heavy, nothing too emotional. But as I took a bite of the pasta, I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It wasn't like I was tasting the meal. It felt like something else was there. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But the more I ate, the more I felt it. The taste was off. It wasn't the same pasta we used to make. It was different. It was thicker, almost too rich, and there was something in it that didn't belong. I pushed my plate away, suddenly losing my appetite. "This doesn't taste right," I said, my voice sounding strange in the stillness of the room. Sarah just smiled again, not seeming to notice or care. She kept eating like everything was fine. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. What was in this food? What had she done to it? That's when I looked down at my plate and realized something even more disturbing. The food wasn't just different in taste, it was different in texture too. It was like it wasn't food at all. My stomach churned as I stared at the plate in front of me. The pasta was too soft, the bread too chewy, and the salad, it looked wrong, almost as if it was rotting. I stood up from the table feeling lightheaded. I backed away slowly, trying to keep my composure. "What did you do to it?" I asked, my voice shaky. Sarah didn't answer me. She just sat there, staring at her plate with a calm expression, as if everything was normal. The longer I stood there, the more my stomach twisted. It wasn't just the food. It was her. The way she was acting, like this was all part of some twisted game. I looked at her, my mind racing. I had to get out of there. But the moment I turned to leave, I heard it, the softest whisper. "Stay with me," she said, almost too quietly to hear. I froze. Her voice was different now, colder, more detached. It wasn't the voice I remembered from when we were together. It was something else, something darker. I turned around quickly, my heart racing, but when I looked at her, she was smiling again. That same calm smile, like everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. Something was wrong. I backed out of the kitchen, trying to keep my cool. I reached for my phone to call someone, anyone, but when I checked it, I saw that I had no signal. The room felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in on me. I had to get out. I didn't care what she said. I couldn't stay here anymore. Just as I turned to leave, I heard her speak again. This time, it wasn't a whisper. It was louder, almost like a command. "You'll never leave me again," she said, standing up from the table, her eyes locking onto mine. Her face was no longer the one I remembered. It was cold, empty, almost. Feral. My legs moved before I could think. I ran out the door, not looking back until I was safely in my car, speeding down the street. My heart was pounding in my chest, my mind racing. What the hell had just happened? What was she trying to do? I didn't go back to the house. I didn't even bother trying to call her. I blocked her number and deleted every trace of her from my life. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. It wasn't just the food. It was the way she had looked at me. Like I was a part of her twisted game, and she wasn't done with me yet. I don't know what she put in that meal. I don't know what she was trying to do, but I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know if I'll ever truly escape her. The first message came 3 days after the breakup, and honestly, I almost felt bad for him when I read it. It was long and messy, the kind of message someone writes when they are sitting alone at night staring at their phone. He kept saying he couldn't believe it was over, that he still thought about me every hour, that maybe I would change my mind if we just talked again. It was sad, but it wasn't scary. At that point, I thought it was normal breakup stuff. His name was Caleb, and we had been together a little over a year. Things weren't terrible between us, but they weren't good either. Toward the end, he got really intense about everything. If I didn't answer a text fast enough, he would send 5 more. If I went out with friends, he wanted constant updates. It started feeling like I was being monitored instead of dating someone. So I ended it. I thought once we stopped talking, it would fade out like every other breakup I've had. Lock the number, give it time, move on. Simple. But Caleb didn't fade out. At first, it was just emails instead of texts. Long ones. Paragraph after paragraph about memories, about trips we took, about small details I didn't even remember anymore. I ignored them. Then the tone changed. The next few messages weren't sad anymore. They were strange. He started writing about dreams. Not my dreams. His. He said he kept dreaming about me walking somewhere he couldn't reach. He said every time he got close, I would disappear behind a corner. The way he described it was weirdly detailed, like he was writing a journal instead of sending an email. I almost replied once, just tell him to stop. But I didn't. And that turned out to be a mistake. About a week later, I got another email. This time there was a video attached. I remember opening it while sitting on my couch because I thought it would just be some random clip or maybe something emotional he wanted me to see. Instead, it was a video of me. The camera angle looked like it was across the street. The clip showed me walking down the sidewalk near my apartment building with a grocery bag in my hand. I recognized the moment immediately because it was from earlier that afternoon. Same jacket, same bag, same street. I stared at the screen for a long time trying to convince myself it was old footage. But it wasn't. The lighting matched the weather that day. The cars parked along the curb were exactly the same as when I got home. Someone had filmed me that afternoon. My first thought was that maybe Caleb had been nearby and just happened to see me. But the second video arrived 10 minutes later. This one showed my car. It was parked in my driveway outside my house. The camera slowly zoomed in toward the windshield like whoever filmed it was standing across the street behind a tree or something. My hands started shaking when I watched that one. I locked my doors after that. For the next few days, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me check the window. I kept thinking I would see someone standing there with a phone pointed at the house. But the weirdest part wasn't the videos. It was what came next. The first package showed up on a Tuesday afternoon. Small brown box. No return address. Just my name written across the top. I almost didn't open it. When I finally did, it was only one thing inside. A small silver key. That was it. No note, no explanation. I had no idea what it opened. It looked old, like something from an antique shop. I put it on the counter and tried to forget about it. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, I was walking down a long hallway inside a house I didn't recognize. At the end of the hallway, there was a door with an old lock on it. I remember reaching into my pocket and pulling out a small silver key. The exact same key that had been in the box. I woke up with my heart pounding. The next morning, the key was still sitting on my kitchen counter where I left it. I tried to laugh it off. Dreams do weird things sometimes. Maybe I had looked at the key long enough that my brain just reused it while I slept. But the next package arrived 2 days later. This one had a small object wrapped in tissue paper. It was a little glass marble. Dark blue with white streaks inside. The second I saw it, my stomach twisted, because I had already seen it before, in another dream. About a week earlier, I had dreamed I was sitting on the floor of a room full of scattered marbles rolling across the wood floor. I remember picking one up that looked exactly like the one now sitting in my hand. Same color, same pattern. I stood in my kitchen staring at it for a long time. That was when I started getting really scared. I searched the house for cameras. I checked my windows. I even checked my attic. Nothing. But the packages kept coming. Each time it was something small. A cracked pocket watch. A tiny toy horse made from metal. A piece of red string tied into a knot. Every single item was something I had already seen in dreams over the past few weeks. The same dreams Caleb kept talking about in his emails. I went back and reread his messages after the fourth package arrived. That was when I noticed something I had missed before. He wasn't just describing dreams about me. He was describing the same objects. In one email, he wrote about a hallway with a locked door. In another, he wrote about marbles rolling across a floor. In another, he mentioned a toy horse sitting on a table next to a window. My chest felt tight while I reading it. He was describing the same dreams I had been having. Word for word. The next message came late one night. No video this time, just text. He wrote that the dreams were getting clearer now. He said the two of us were getting closer inside them. He said soon the dreams and the real world would stop being separate. That message made me finally go to the police. I showed them the videos, the packages, the emails. They told me the videos could have been filmed from the street, and the packages had no fingerprints on them besides mine. They suggested changing my routines and blocking his email. I did both. But 3 nights later, I had another dream. And I was standing inside my own house. But something felt wrong. The furniture was slightly different. The walls were darker. And on the kitchen table, there was a small box sitting exactly where the key had been weeks earlier. Inside the dream, I walked toward it. I opened the box, and inside was a small black ring. When I woke up the next morning, there was a package sitting on my front porch. I didn't even want to open it, but I did anyway. Inside was a small black ring, exactly the same one from the dream. I don't know how Caleb is doing it. I don't know if he's watching me sleep somehow or if something else is going on. But the last email I got from him said the dreams are almost finished now. He said once the final dream happens, we won't have to be apart anymore. And tonight, I'm afraid to go to sleep, because I already know what the next object looks like. I saw it in a dream last night. And if the pattern keeps going, it's probably already on its way to my house. Moving to the new apartment was supposed to be the reset button for my life. That was the whole reason I did it. New city, new building, new routines. I even changed my job location so nothing from my old life would follow me here, especially not her. Her name was Lily, and the breakup with her had been ugly. Not loud and dramatic ugly, but the quiet kind that leaves something wrong in the air. The kind where the other person doesn't accept that it's actually over. When I ended it, she just stared at me like I had said something temporary. Like I had told her I was going to the store and instead of leaving forever. That look stuck in my head for weeks. So when I moved, I didn't tell her anything. No address, no job details, nothing. I blocked her number, removed social media, changed everything. I honestly thought that was the end of it. For about a month, it was. My new apartment building wasn't fancy, but it was decent. 6 floors, quiet neighbors, and an elevator that made this annoying buzzing sound every time the doors opened. I started getting into a routine pretty fast. Wake up around 7, grab coffee at the small shop on the corner, take the elevator down, drive to work, repeat. Life felt normal again. Until the first note showed up. I didn't notice it right away. I got into the elevator one morning like usual and pressed the button for the lobby. As the doors started closing, I saw something taped to the wall next to the buttons. It was just a small folded piece of paper. I assumed it was something random, maybe a maintenance notice or someone leaving a message for a neighbor. But when I unfolded it, my stomach dropped. It only had 5 words written on it. I still know your schedule. No name. No explanation. Just that sentence. I stood there staring at it the whole elevator ride down. My first thought was that it had to be a joke. Maybe someone in the building messing around. But the second note showed up 2 days later. This time it was stuck right above the button for the 3rd floor. The note said something even worse. You were late yesterday. That one messed with me more than the first, because I actually had been late to work the day before. I overslept and rushed out of the building about 40 minutes later than usual. Someone had noticed. After that, I started paying attention to everything. Every time I stepped in the elevator, I checked the walls. Sometimes there would be nothing. Sometimes there would be a note waiting for me. The messages got creepier. One said, I like the blue jacket better. Another said coffee at 7:12 today. They were describing my routine exactly. I kept trying to tell myself it was just someone in the building observing things. Maybe a neighbor with too much time on their hands. But deep down I knew. It was her. The first time I actually saw Lily again was about 2 weeks after the note started. I was walking into the building after work, and as she was standing across the street like she had just been waiting there all day. She looked exactly the same. Same long hair. Same calm expression. Same eyes that made it impossible to tell what she was thinking. She smiled when she saw me. I didn't even stop walking. I went straight inside and locked my apartment door. That night, I barely slept. The notes in the elevator kept coming after that. Sometimes they were just one sentence. Sometimes they were longer. One note described what I had eaten for lunch earlier that day. Another said 3rd floor camera doesn't see everything. That one made my chest tighten, because my building actually had security cameras in the hallways. I tried reporting it to the landlord, but there wasn't much they could do. They checked the cameras and didn't see anyone leaving notes, which meant one of two things. Either Lily knew how to avoid them, or she was already inside the building. The worst part was that sometimes I thought I saw her. A quick glimpse of someone turning a corner in the hallway, a reflection in an elevator mirror that disappeared when I turned around. Every time it happened, I would search the floor and find nothing. Then the pictures started. It happened on a Thursday. I came home from work around 6 like usual. The hallway outside my apartment was quiet. Nothing seemed different. But the second I opened my door, something felt wrong. The air inside smelled strange, like paper. When I stepped into the living room, I stopped moving completely. Every wall was covered in pictures of me. Hundreds of them. Printed photos taped everywhere. On the walls, the furniture, even the ceiling in some spots. Every photo was me. Me sitting at my desk at work. Me walking through the office hallway. Me standing near the covier. Me looking at my phone during lunch. The angles were all different. Some were taken from behind desks. Some looked like they were taken from across the room. Some were close enough that I could see my own reflection in my computer screen. My hands started shaking when I realized something. Every picture had been taken at my workplace. While I was there. While I had no idea anyone was watching. There were so many photos that it looked like a collage of my entire workday. Morning pictures, afternoon pictures, different outfits from different days. She had been there over and over again, and I never noticed her once. Right in the center of the room, there was one final picture taped to the wall. It was the biggest one. The photo showed me sitting at my desk earlier that morning. But the thing that made my stomach drop was what was behind me in the picture. A reflection in the glass of the office window. A woman standing in the hallway watching me. Lily, right behind me. The photo had writing on it in black marker. It said I'm always there. I tore the pictures down that night until my hands hurt. But even after the walls were empty again, I couldn't stop thinking about something. If she was able to take those photos at work without me noticing, then how many times has she already been inside my apartment without me knowing? The day I finally left him felt like stepping outside after being stuck in a dark room for months. Everything suddenly felt lighter. My head was clearer. The air even smelled different. It sounds dramatic, but when you spend a year dating someone who lies about literally everything, it messes with your brain more than you realize. His name was Marcus, and for the longest time I believed every word he said. That was the problem. He was good at it. Really good. The kind of guy who could look straight at you and promise something while already planning the next lie. At first, the lies were small things, stuff you almost laugh about. Saying he was stuck in traffic when he clearly hadn't even left his house yet. Saying he had finished a project when he hadn't even started it. But over time, the lies got bigger. Jobs he claimed to have. People he said he knew. Stories about his past that slowly stopped matching up. I started noticing patterns. Things that didn't line up. I would ask a question, and his answer would shift slightly every time. One night, I finally started digging through everything. Old messages, old emails, things he told me months earlier. The whole thing collapsed like a house of cards. Almost nothing was true. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. That was the weird part. He just started apologizing over and over, saying he would change, saying he just didn't want to lose me, saying all the lies were because he loved me. I heard that speech for weeks. Every time I tried to leave, he would say the same thing again, promise after promise after promise. Eventually, I realized something important. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He was just trying to buy time. So one afternoon, I packed my things and walked out of the apartment. No big fight, no yelling. I just left. For about 2 weeks, things were quiet. Then the first package arrived. It showed up on my doorstep while I was at work. Small cardboard box with my name written on the front. No return address. I thought it was something I ordered online. When I opened it, I froze. Inside was a hair clip. Not just any hair clip. My hair clip. It was a small black one with a little silver star on the side. I lost it months earlier and never thought about it again. I figured it fell out of my bag somewhere. But there it was sitting in the box like it had been carefully placed there. There was no note inside. Just the clip. I stood in my kitchen staring at it for a long time. Then I threw the box away and told myself it was probably something Marcus found while cleaning the apartment. Maybe he was trying to return it in a weird way. But 2 days later, another package showed up. This one had a small bracelet inside. I recognized it immediately. It was a cheap bracelet I used to wear sometimes when we first started dating. It had broken one night while we were out, and I never found the pieces. Except now it was inside a box on my kitchen counter. Still broken. Still exactly the way it had snapped that night. That was when I started feeling nervous. The third package arrived a week later. Inside was my old house key. Not the one I currently used. The one from my first apartment 2 years ago. I had no idea how he even had that. I didn't even know when I lost it. This time there was a small piece of paper inside the box. 3 words written in black ink. I remember everything. After that, the packages started arriving faster. Sometimes 2 in 1 week. Each box had something small that used to belong to me. An old movie ticket from a theater we went to once. A necklace I thought I had dropped in a parking lot months earlier. A little keychain shaped like a guitar that disappeared from my bag one day. Every item was something I had forgotten about. Things that disappeared so quietly I never questioned it. Until now. I started realizing something that made my stomach twist. Those things hadn't been lost. Marcus had been taking them. Little by little. Over months. Maybe longer. I changed my locks after that. I installed a camera by my front door. I blocked every number he could possibly use. But the packages kept showing up. Always when I wasn't home. Always sitting neatly outside my door. The last one was different. It arrived late in the evening while I was still home. I heard the knock and opened the door immediately. No one was there. Just a box sitting on the floor. This one was heavier than the others. When I brought it inside, I noticed something strange. There was a small metal lock on the front. The lid wouldn't open. Taped to the top of the box was an envelope. My hands felt cold while I opened it. Inside was a single note. The handwriting was his. I've kept everything you've ever given me. You're not getting away. That sentence made my chest tighten. Because the box wasn't just heavy. It sounded full. Something inside shifted when I picked it up. I sat at my kitchen table staring at it for almost 20 minutes before I finally decided to break the lock. I used a screwdriver and a hammer until the metal snapped open. When I lifted the lid, I instantly wished I hadn't. Inside the box were hundreds of things. Photos of us. Every gift I had ever given him. Old letters. Movie stubs. Receipts. Even small things I barely remembered giving him. But mixed in with those things were other items. Things that belonged to me. My old earrings. Hair ties. A pair of sunglasses I lost last summer. Stuff that had disappeared from my life over time. At the very bottom of the box there was something else. A stack of printed photographs. All of them were pictures of me. Recent ones. Me leaving my building. Me sitting in my car. Me walking into the grocery store near my apartment. The dates printed in the corner of the photos were from the past 2 weeks. Which meant Marcus wasn't just holding on to the past. He was still watching me. I spent that whole night sitting on my couch with the box open on the floor, looking at everything he had collected. Every memory. Every item. Every small piece of my life he had taken without me knowing. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. You left a lot behind. That was the moment I realized something I hadn't thought about before. If Marcus had been collecting things from me for that long, then he had been planning for me to leave long before I ever did. And judging by the photos in that box, he's still planning something. The first thing that happened was the text, and honestly, if that was the only thing, I probably would have ignored it and moved on with my life. Breakups are messy sometimes. People get dramatic. They say stuff they don't mean. They send weird messages late at night. I've seen it happen with friends before. So when my phone buzzed that evening and I saw a text from a number I didn't recognize, I wasn't expecting anything serious. The message was short. You'll be sorry. That was it. No name. No explanation. I remember staring at the screen for a few seconds and just rolling my eyes. My ex, Brandon, and I had broken up 2 days earlier, and things weren't exactly friendly. He kept saying I was making a mistake, saying I would regret leaving him, saying no one else would understand me the way he did. So seeing that message didn't really surprise me. I just blocked the number and moved on. If only it stayed that simple. About 4 days later, I noticed the first thing missing. It was just a hoodie. Nothing special about it. Just a gray one I used when the weather got cold. I looked around my apartment for it, checked the laundry basket, checked under the couch, checked the bedroom floor. Nothing. I'd assumed I left it somewhere. Maybe at the gym or in my car. I didn't think much about it. But 2 days later, something else disappeared. One of my books. I keep a small shelf in the living room with books I've collected over the years. Most of them are paperbacks I've read multiple times. That morning I grabbed one because I was planning to read during lunch break at work. Except it wasn't there. There was a gap on the shelf where it used to be. At first I thought I was imagining things. Maybe I had already taken it to work earlier that week. But when I checked my bag, it wasn't there either. That was the first moment I started feeling uneasy. Because I live alone. No roommates. No one else with keys. At least that's what I thought. Over the next week, more things disappeared. Small stuff at first. A scarf. A pair of socks. Then it got stranger. A folder with important documents vanished from the desk in my bedroom. The folder had things like copies of my birth certificate and some paperwork I kept organized in case I needed it. I searched the entire apartment. Closet. Kitchen cabinets. Bathroom drawers. Nothing. That night I started checking the locks on my door twice before going to sleep. Then 3 times. Then 5. I even moved a chair under the doorknob just to feel a little safer. But the missing things kept adding up. My favorite jacket disappeared. Then my headphones. Then a pair of shoes that had been sitting by the door the night before. The apartment looked the same every day except for one detail. Pieces of my life were slowly disappearing, and I had no idea how. I started wondering if someone in the building had a master key. Maybe maintenance workers coming in while I was gone. So I asked the landlord. He told me no one had entered my apartment. That made things worse. One night I sat on the couch going through my phone trying to figure out if Brandon somehow got a copy of my key before the breakup. That thought stuck in my head for hours. But even if he had a key, why would he just take random things? Why not confront me directly? Why not show himself? Then something happened that made the situation go from creepy to terrifying. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was cleaning the apartment because honestly the stress was making it impossible to relax. I started organizing my closet, pulling out old clothes I didn't wear anymore. That's when I saw it. Taped to the inside wall of the closet. A small piece of paper. My chest tightened immediately because I knew for a fact that hadn't been there before. I pulled it off the wall slowly. The moment I looked at it, I felt the blood drain from my face. The note had only 3 words written on it. I'll be back. And the handwriting was mine. Not similar. Not close. It was exactly my handwriting. The same way I write the letter B. The same way I loop the letter L. Even the slight tilt in the letters matched how I normally write. I sat on the floor of my closet staring at that piece of paper for what felt like forever. My brain kept trying to explain it. Maybe I wrote it at some point and forgot. Maybe someone copied my writing. But deep down I knew something was very wrong. Because I would never write something like that and tape it inside my own closet. That night I didn't sleep at all. I kept thinking about the missing items. The hoodie. The book. The documents. What if someone wasn't just taking things? What if someone was replacing them too? The next morning I started checking everything in the apartment more carefully. That was when I noticed something else. A notebook on my desk. It was one I used for random lists and reminders. I opened it and started flipping through the pages. Halfway through the notebook, there were 3 pages filled with writing. The handwriting was mine again. But I didn't remember writing any of it. The pages were full of short sentences. Random things. He was right about you. You should have stayed. You'll regret it soon. At the bottom of the last page, there was another sentence. Next time I'll take something bigger. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the notebook. That was when I realized something that made everything worse. The missing things weren't random. Someone was removing pieces of my life. Clothes. Documents. Personal items. And replacing them with things written in my own handwriting. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. Another message from a different unknown number. 3 words. Did you find it? I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen for a long time. Because suddenly the note in my closet felt less like a threat, and more like a promise. The worst part about everything that happened is that the first warning looked harmless. If you saw it from the outside, you probably would have thought it was romantic. The kind of thing people post online with captions about love that never gives up. But when you're the person inside the situation, when you're the one being watched and followed, and slowly realizing someone refuses to disappear from your life, it feels completely different. It started with flowers. 3 weeks after I broke up with Aaron, a delivery showed up at my office. I work at a small marketing company, the kind of place where everyone knows each other and packages always get passed around the front desk like gossip. That afternoon, my coworker Jenna walked over to my desk holding a bouquet of white roses. She had that smile people get when they think something cute is happening. She said someone must really miss you. Inside the bouquet, there was a small card. No signature. Just one sentence written in thick black ink. Still thinking about you. My stomach tightened the second I saw the handwriting. It was Aaron's. Aaron and I dated for about 1.5 years. For most of that time, things were normal, maybe even good. But near the end, something started changing about him. He got more intense about everything. If I didn't answer a message fast enough, he would send another one. If I went out with friends, he would ask 100 questions about where I was and who was there. At first, I thought he was just insecure. Then I realized he was controlling. Breaking up with him was harder than it should have been because he refused to accept it. Every conversation turned into the same cycle. He would promise he would change, promise he understood, promise he would give me space. Then 5 minutes later, he would be asking if we could try again. So when those flowers showed up at work, I already knew exactly who they were from. I threw them away in the office trash. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Hope you like the roses. I blocked the number immediately. 2 days later, another delivery arrived at my job. This time it was a small envelope. Inside was a folded note. I miss how you laugh. Again, no name, but the handwriting was the same. That was when the situation stopped feeling harmless. Over the next couple of weeks, things kept showing up. Sometimes at my work. Sometimes at my apartment. Small notes slipped under my door. A cup of coffee waiting on the hood of my car in the morning. Once I opened my mailbox and found a photo of the park where Aaron and I had our first date. The photo had a sentence written across the back. "You always said this place felt safe." Each new thing made my chest tighten a little more. Because I wasn't telling Aaron where I worked anymore. I had moved apartments after the breakup. I changed my routines. And yet he kept appearing in small ways. Like he was always one step ahead. Then the letter arrived. That one was different. It came through the mail in a plain white envelope with no return address. The paper inside was thick, almost like something from a fancy stationery set. Only 3 words were written in the center. "I'm watching you." My hands felt cold when I read it. After that, I started checking everything. Door locks. Windows. The hallway outside my apartment. I even started closing my curtains every night. For a while, nothing happened. No notes. No packages. No messages. Part of me thought maybe he had finally stopped. Then came the night I woke up. It was around 3 in the morning. I don't even know what woke me up exactly. Maybe a sound. Maybe that strange feeling you get when something in the room doesn't feel right. My bedroom was dark except for a little bit of street light coming through the window. At first, I thought I was alone. Then my eyes adjusted, and I saw the shape in the corner. Someone was sitting on the floor next to my dresser. Perfectly still. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I pushed myself up slowly in bed, and that's when the figure leaned forward into the light. It was Aaron. He had been sitting there watching me sleep. I couldn't even speak at first. My throat felt tight like all the air had disappeared from the room. Then I noticed what he was holding. A knife. Not a huge one, but long enough to make my stomach twist the second I saw it. Aaron looked different than I remembered. His eyes looked tired, dark circles under them like he hadn't slept in days. But the scariest part was the way he was smiling. Not a happy smile. The kind of smile people make when they think they've finally solved something. He leaned closer and spoke softly. He said he couldn't lose me again. Those words made my entire body freeze. Because the way he said them didn't sound emotional. It sounded certain. Like he had already decided something. My brain started racing trying to figure out what to do. The door was behind him. My phone was on the nightstand next to the bed. I moved slowly, pretending to adjust the blanket so I could reach the phone. Aaron's eyes followed every movement. He told me he had been coming by the apartment for weeks. He said sometimes he just watched from outside. Sometimes from the hallway. Sometimes from inside. That sentence made my stomach drop. Inside. He explained it like it was normal, like he was just describing a routine. He said he needed to make sure I was safe. Needed to make sure no one else took me away from him. While he talked, he kept holding the knife loosely in his hand, turning it slightly so the streetlight reflected off the blade. I managed to grab my phone without him noticing and dial emergency services under the blanket. When the operator answered, I didn't say anything. I just left the line open. Aaron kept talking about how things were supposed to be between us. About how we were meant to stay together. About how breaking up had been a mistake. He kept saying the same sentence over and over. He couldn't lose me again. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. Those 10 minutes felt like hours. Aaron didn't try to run when they came in. He just looked confused, like he didn't understand why anyone would interrupt. As they took him away, he looked back at me with that same calm expression. Like he still believed everything he said. I moved out of that apartment the next week. New city. New building. New job. But sometimes late at night when the room is quiet, I still wake up suddenly. And for a few seconds, I expect to see someone sitting in the corner again. Watching. Waiting. The weird thing about stalking is that it doesn't feel like stalking at first. It feels like coincidence. That's what messes with your head the most. You keep telling yourself there must be some normal explanation because the alternative is too uncomfortable to accept. That's exactly what happened with me and Dana. When we broke up, I honestly thought it was over. Not the dramatic kind of breakup where people scream or throw things. It was quiet. We sat in my apartment, talked for a while, and eventually both admitted the relationship wasn't working anymore. At least, that's what I thought we both admitted. Dana didn't cry when I told her it was done. She didn't argue either. She just sat there with this calm look on her face, nodding slowly while I explained everything. I remember thinking she was handling it surprisingly well. Before she left, she told me something that seemed harmless at the time. She said she understood, and that she just wanted me to be happy. Looking back, the way she said it makes my skin crawl now. Because it didn't sound like acceptance. It sounded like patience. For the first month after the breakup, I didn't hear from her at all. No texts, no calls, nothing. I blocked her number anyway just to avoid trauma, but honestly, I didn't think I needed to. Life felt normal again. Then the first coincidence happened. I was leaving my office building on a Tuesday afternoon when I saw Dana across the street near a coffee truck. She was standing there holding a cup and talking on her phone. At least, that's what it looked like. When our eyes met, she smiled like we had just run into each other randomly. She waved. I awkwardly waved back and kept walking. It felt uncomfortable, but not terrifying. Cities are big, but people still run into each other sometimes. That's what I told myself. 2 days later, I saw her again. This time it was at the gym. I had just finished a workout and was walking toward the locker room when I saw her at the front desk scanning a membership card. She was wearing workout clothes and talking casually with the staff like she had been coming there forever. She looked over at me and smiled again. Another coincidence. That's what I kept repeating in my head. Until the third one. Every Friday night, I go to the same bar with 2 friends from work. It's a small place downtown that does cheap drinks and terrible karaoke. It's been our routine for years. That night, we were already sitting at the table when someone pulled out the chair next to me. It was Dana. She sat down like she had always been part of the group. My friends looked confused because they had never met her before. Dana introduced herself casually and started chatting like nothing was strange about the situation. I remember sitting there feeling like the air had suddenly gotten heavier. 3 places in 1 week. Office area. Gym. Favorite bar. That's when the thought first crossed my mind. Maybe it wasn't coincidence. After that, I started noticing patterns. Whenever I left work early, she somehow appeared near the building. If I changed my gym schedule, she'd adjusted hers within a few days. One time, I decided to grab lunch at a random food place across town. 10 minutes later, she walked in. She always acted relaxed when she saw me, like we're just 2 people sharing the same city. But the way she looked at me started feeling wrong. Like she knew exactly where I would be before I even got there. I tried confronting her once. I asked if she had been following me. She just laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A confident one. She said the city wasn't that big, and we probably just had similar routines. The conversation left me feeling uneasy, but I couldn't prove anything. So I tried something different. I started changing everything. Different gym. Different lunch spots. Different bar. For about 2 weeks, I thought it worked. Then one afternoon, I left work and saw her sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. That was the moment everything snapped into place. Because I'd never told her where I moved after the breakup. She was sitting there with a suitcase next to her. A big black suitcase like someone about to go on vacation. When she saw me walking toward the building, her face lit up with excitement. Not surprise. Excitement. Like she had been waiting for that exact moment. I stopped about 10 feet away from her. My chest felt tight because something about the situation suddenly felt completely unreal. Dana stood up and grabbed the suitcase handle. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. She said we were moving in together. Forever. The way she said the word forever felt heavy. Not romantic. Final. I asked how she even found my apartment. She didn't answer directly. She just said it wasn't hard to keep track of someone if you really cared about them. Then she started listing things. The coffee shop I stopped at most mornings. The park I jogged through sometimes. The exact time I left work most days. She knew everything. Not guesses. Details. Specific details. It was like she'd been building a schedule for my entire life. While she talked, she kept smiling like everything she was saying made perfect sense. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Dana didn't think she was stalking me. In her mind, we had never broken up. She thought she was just staying close to the person she belonged with. The suitcase made sense to her. Moving in made sense to her. Forever made sense to her. I told her she needed to leave. Her smile disappeared immediately. The change in her expression was instant. Like a switch had flipped. She said, I didn't understand yet. But I would. Because she had already adjusted her life around mine. She had changed her job location. Her gym. Her routines. Everything. She said the hard part was already done. Now, all I had to do was accept it. Eventually, the police got involved that night and made her leave. But the part that still keeps me awake sometimes isn't the suitcase. It's something she said right before they took her away. She said routines are easy to rebuild. And she sounded completely certain that she would find mine again. The first symbol showed up on my front door, and I almost wiped it off without thinking about it. It was drawn in black marker about the size of my palm, just a strange shape. A circle with 3 crooked lines running through it. It didn't look like anything I recognized. No letters, no numbers, nothing that made sense. At the time, I thought it was just someone messing around. Maybe kids in the building or someone bored walking through the hallway. I grabbed a paper towel, wiped it off, and went inside my apartment without thinking twice. I wish that had been the end of it. A week earlier, I had broken up with my boyfriend, Ethan. The relationship had lasted almost 2 years, and by the end it felt like I was dating a completely different person than the one I met. He got quiet and intense about things. Conversations stopped feeling normal. Everything felt heavier, like he was constantly analyzing every word I said. The breakup itself was uncomfortable but calm. No screaming, no huge fight. Just a long conversation where I told him I didn't feel the same anymore. He didn't argue much. That part was strange. He mostly just stared at me while I talked, nodding occasionally like he was memorizing everything I said. Before leaving, he told me something that stuck in my mind afterward. He said people only leave when they don't understand their purpose yet. I didn't know what that meant, and honestly, I didn't want to know. A few days after the symbol on my door appeared, another one showed up. This time it was on the wall in the hallway near the elevator. Same circle, same strange lines cutting through it. The marker looked fresh. I wiped that one off too. Then another appeared. This one was on the inside of my mailbox. That was when I started feeling uncomfortable. Because someone had opened the mailbox to draw it there. And there was only one person I could think of who would do something that weird. Ethan. I tried convincing myself I was overreacting. Maybe someone else in the building was doing it. But then the photos started appearing. The first photo was slipped under my apartment door late one night. I didn't notice it until the next morning when I stepped on it while walking to the kitchen. It was a picture of me standing outside a grocery store. I recognized the moment immediately because I remembered wearing the same jacket the day before. I was holding a bag of fruit and looking down at my phone. Someone had taken that photo while I was outside the store. On the back of the picture, there were words written in black ink. You're part of something bigger. My hands felt cold while I read it. I looked out into the hallway immediately, but there was no one there. That was when I locked my door for the rest of the day. Over the next 2 weeks, more photos showed up. Each one slipped under my door or left in my mailbox. Every picture was me, walking down the street, standing at the bus stop, sitting at a table in a cafe. They were taken from different angles like someone was following me at a distance. Every photo had a message written on the back. One said you're getting closer. Another said the circle is almost complete. One of them said something that made my stomach twist. You're the center of it. That sentence stayed in my head all night, because it sounded less like a threat and more like something someone would write about a ritual. I finally decided to go to the police. I brought the photos with me and explained everything. They told me without proof of who took them, there wasn't much they could do. They suggested installing a camera outside my apartment door. So I did. For 3 nights, nothing happened. Then on the 4th night, the camera recorded something that made my chest tighten when I watched it. At around 2:13 in the morning, someone walked down the hallway. The camera angle only caught part of their body, but I could see enough. It was Ethan. He stopped outside my door for almost 30 seconds. Then he slid something under the door before walking away calmly. The next morning, I found another photo waiting on the floor. This one was different. It showed my apartment building from across the street. But the message on the back was the worst one yet. The shrine is growing. At first, I thought it was just another creepy sentence meant to scare me. But 3 days later, something happened that made it all real. I was leaving work when I saw Ethan standing on the sidewalk across the street. He didn't try to hide. He just stood there watching me. I walked straight toward him because at that point I was too angry to be scared. When I got close enough to see his face clearly, I realized something was wrong. He looked exhausted but excited at the same time, like someone who had been working on a huge project for months. I demanded to know what he was doing. He smiled slightly. Then he told me something that made my stomach drop. He said I should come see what he built. I told him I wasn't going anywhere with him, but he kept talking. He explained that he had been collecting things connected to me. Photos, objects, memories, moments. He said every relationship has a center, and he finally understood that I was his. He said the shrine was almost finished. The only thing missing was me. The way he said that made the air feel heavy, like he believed every word. I walked away without saying anything else. That night, I barely slept, because one thought kept repeating in my mind. If Ethan had already built something like that, then somewhere out there was a room full of pictures of me. Symbols, notes, and a space waiting in the middle. A space meant for the final piece. Breaking up with her wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Things with Maya had been off for months. We had gotten into a routine that felt more like a friendship than a relationship. There were no big fights, no dramatic moments, just a slow, suffocating realization that we were better off apart. I told her it was over, and she nodded like she understood. There were no tears, no pleading, no guilt trips. But now that I think back, that calm acceptance felt a little too practiced. At first, it was normal. I moved out, got my own place, and tried to start fresh. I thought the hardest part was over. But a few days after the breakup, I started receiving the packages. The first one wasn't so strange. It was a small plain box, the kind you'd use for a gift or a letter. Inside was an old photograph of us. It was from one of those weekend trips we had taken to the lake a couple of years ago. We were sitting on the dock, her head on my shoulder, smiling like we had all the time in the world. I wasn't sure why she sent it. Maybe it was her way of letting me know she was thinking about the good times, or maybe she just didn't know how to let go. I didn't think much of it. I just set the picture on my coffee table and moved on with my day. But then another package arrived. This one was a small velvet pouch. Inside, I found a piece of jewelry. It was a bracelet I had given her during our second anniversary. I remembered the day I gave it to her, how she had smiled, how happy she was. The bracelet had a small silver charm in the shape of a heart. I had forgotten all about it until now. That's when I started to feel uneasy. I thought it might be some sort of closure for her, like she was trying to hold on to something from the relationship. I didn't want to overthink it, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she had to know where I lived to send the packages. I told her I was moving, but I didn't give her my new address. That nagging feeling in the back of my mind wouldn't go away. A week went by without anything. I started to relax a little, thinking maybe the weirdness was over. Then, one afternoon, I came home to find another package on my doorstep. This one was different. It wasn't a box or an envelope. It was a folded piece of paper, carefully placed under my doormat. I picked it up and opened it. The message was short, but the words hit me like a punch to the gut. I'm waiting for you in the place where we first kissed. It was signed with her initials. I stared at the note for a long time, trying to process it. The place where we first kissed. I knew exactly where that was. It was a small park near our old neighborhood, where we had spent our first real date. We walked around for hours, talking about everything and nothing. We sat under a tree, and that's where we kissed for the first time, with the sun setting behind us. Why would she bring that up now? Why would she be waiting there? I thought about ignoring it, pretending it didn't matter. But something told me I couldn't just let it go. I had to know what this was all about. So that evening, I decided to go to the park. When I got there, the sun was just starting to set. It was quiet, peaceful, almost like the way it had been that day years ago. The park was empty, except for a few people walking their dogs. My heart was racing as I walked through the familiar path toward the tree where we had kissed. That's when I saw her. She was standing in the shadows under the tree, her figure barely visible in the dimming light. My first thought was that maybe I was wrong. Maybe it wasn't her. But then she turned, and I saw her face. It was Mia, standing there with a soft smile on her lips, as though she had been waiting for me to show up. I froze. She looked different. There was something in her eyes that I couldn't quite place. Something distant, almost disconnected from the world around her. But at the same time, she seemed oddly calm, like everything was going exactly as she had planned. I took a few steps forward, trying to keep my distance. My mind was racing. What is she here? What'd she want? She didn't speak at first. She just kept smiling at me, that same soft, almost sad smile I had seen so many times before. Then she took a step forward and held out a suitcase. A small, worn suitcase, the kind you would use for a weekend trip. I didn't know what to say. She didn't say anything either. She just looked at me and whispered, "We're moving in together, forever." My stomach dropped, and I felt this sick, heavy weight in my chest. The words felt like a punch, like she had been planning this for much longer than I realized. How could she think that? After everything, after the breakup, how could she show up here with a suitcase and act like nothing had changed? I shook my head, my voice barely coming out. "Mia, this isn't what I want. You need to leave." But she didn't move. She just stood there, staring at me, her smile never fading. "I can't live without you," she said softly. "I can't let you go. Not again." The silence that followed was thick. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel my hands shaking. I wanted to run, to get out of there, but something about the way she stood there, so calm, so sure of herself, made me freeze. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I turned to leave, but before I could take a step, she stepped in front of me, blocking my path. She reached into the suitcase and pulled out something that made my blood run cold. It was a photo of us from that first date, the one we had spent under the tree. Only this time, the photo had something different in it. There was a small symbol drawn over the picture, a symbol I didn't recognize, but that made my stomach churn the moment I saw it. It was the same symbol I had seen around my apartment in the weeks before, the strange shape, like a circle with jagged lines cutting through it. Her voice was low as she spoke again, almost a whisper. "I've been building it. The shrine is not complete without you." My heart raced. This wasn't just a reunion. This wasn't just her trying to get back together with me. This was something far worse. I backed away, my mind spinning. I had to get out of there. I had to leave before she did something else. But Mia didn't chase me. She just stood there, holding the photo, the suitcase by her side, her smile still fixed on her face. I ran. I didn't look back until I was safely inside my car, locked the doors, and started driving away. That night, I stayed at a friend's house. I didn't feel safe going back to my apartment, even though I had a lock on the door. The feeling of her standing there with that suitcase, smiling at me like she had planned this moment, was something I couldn't shake. I don't know what she's planning next, but I know she's not done with me. I always thought I'd be the one to end things, that I would be the one who finally put an end to the relationship. But when I broke up with Jason, I had no idea what I was actually walking into. It was supposed to be simple. A clean break, a let's move on kind of thing. But it was anything but that. We'd been together for almost 3 years. The last few months had been rocky, but that wasn't unusual for a relationship. The weird part was when I finally told him I couldn't do it anymore, he just didn't respond the way I thought he would. He didn't beg, he didn't cry, he didn't yell. Instead, he just stared at me, nodded slowly, and said he understood. I thought it was a good sign, a sign that he was going to move on too. Boy, was I wrong. For the first few days after the breakup, things were quiet. I'd locked him on everything. My phone, social media, email, you name it. I figured that would be the end of it. But then it started. The first thing was a text, an unknown number. "I'm not done with you." I stared at it for a while before deleting it. I figured it was just him, still holding on to something. People do that sometimes after a breakup. They lash out, they get angry. I didn't think much of it at first. Then came the flowers. I came home from work one afternoon and there they were, sitting on my doorstep, a bouquet of roses. Red, of course, because Jason had always gone for the classics. At first, I thought it might have been a mistake. Maybe someone else had ordered them. But when I picked up the card, I knew better. It was from him. The card simply read, "I'm watching you." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Watching me. What did that even mean? I threw the flowers away, but the unease stayed with me. A few days later, the note started. The first one was slipped under my door. A small, folded piece of paper. I opened it and immediately felt my stomach drop. It was a crude drawing of a heart surrounded by messy scribbles. At the bottom, it read, "I'm still here." That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept checking the locks on my door, peeking through the blinds to see if anyone was outside, but I never saw anything. The next day, the second note arrived. This one was different. It wasn't under my door. Instead, it was taped to the back of my car window. I found it after work. This time, it wasn't a drawing. It was a list of places I'd been over the past few days: my gym, my favorite cafe, the grocery store. At the bottom, written in bold red ink, was another simple message. Soon. I didn't know what to think anymore. I tried calling the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do without any evidence. And I didn't have any real proof, just these creepy notes. Then came the night I'll never forget. It was late, and I had just finished a shower when I heard a soft knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart started pounding as I walked toward the door, cautiously peeking through the peephole. There was no one there. But then I saw something else. On the ground, just barely visible in the dim light, was a small black object. It was a camera. A small, handheld one, like the kind you'd use for personal videos or photos. I didn't touch it at first. I wasn't even sure if I should, but my curiosity got the best of me. I bent down to pick it up and immediately felt my stomach turn. The camera was on. I hit the play button. It was footage of me. The video started with me walking into my living room, sitting down on the couch, and looking at my phone. But then the camera angle shifted. It zoomed in on the side of my door, and in the shadows, I could see a figure. A man. His face was obscured by darkness, but there was no mistaking who it was. It was Jason. I watched in horror as the video continued, showing him standing outside my apartment window, staring in at me through the blinds. He was so still, so quiet. I could barely hear him breathing through the speaker. The video ended with him turning away from the window, walking off into the night. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking as I turned off the camera and dropped it on the floor. How long had he been watching me? How many times had he done this without me knowing? But it didn't end there. The next morning, I woke up to the most chilling thing yet. A small package was waiting for me outside my door. It wasn't big, but it was heavy enough to make me uneasy. I brought it inside and opened it slowly, not knowing what I was going to find. Inside was a mirror, a small handheld mirror with a delicate frame, but what stood out was the reflection. It wasn't mine. The reflection was twisted, distorted. My face looked the same, but everything around me was wrong. The room behind me looked dark, like it was being consumed by shadows, and my expression wasn't one of fear or confusion. It was calm, almost empty. I felt like I was looking at a stranger. That's when the text came again. "You're mine. Forever." I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed my phone and called the police again, demanding they do something. But as I was explaining everything to the dispatcher, the doorbell rang. I froze. I didn't open the door right away. I waited, listening. My heart was beating in my throat. Then came the knock. Slow, deliberate. I looked through the peephole, and my stomach dropped. Jason was standing there. But this time, he didn't have a bouquet or a note. He had a small brown suitcase. His eyes were wild, desperate. He didn't speak at first. He just stood there, holding the suitcase in front of him like it was something precious. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost too calm. "I'm here to stay," he said, his eyes wide with something I couldn't place. "I can't let you go. I won't let you go. Not again." I didn't wait for him to say anything else. I ran to the back door, flung it open, and bolted out of my apartment. I didn't stop running until I reached the parking lot, my heart racing and my mind screaming that I had to get away. I'm staying with a friend now, But every time I close my eyes, I see his face, his eyes, the suitcase, the mirror. I don't know where he is right now, but I know one thing for sure. He's not done with me.